Hey, thanks for coming back to the Rock Your Retirement Show. And I wanted to let you know that this is a part 2. And in the last episode, we just found out that Barbara just had surgery for breast cancer. So if you have not listened to part 1, please go back and listen to that first. And Barbara, thank you so much for coming back on the show.
Hi, Kathe. It seems weird to kind of start and stop and leave people hanging. However, that's pretty much like this rodeo goes when you have breast cancer. I described as a roller coaster. You find out good news and then not so great news, and then you find out more news. And so I just kind of wanted to go back a little bit to preparing and the day of surgery. I'm not in any pain. I don't have any symptoms before the surgery, but psychologically, it really takes its toll because you start thinking about, I'm going to go under general anesthesia. And I don't think anyone can do that and not think about the what if I don't wake up question. And even though my husband said, you're going to be fine, it's going to be fine, there's still that thinking about it. The other thing is that I didn't realize it would be such a process that day. We had to get up early, drive to a place to get a mammogram. And because my cancer was so small, they had to put a wire in. And so, it was almost like a pointing arrow to where the surgeon had to remove the tissue. Because
now, wait a minute. They did the mammogram. And during the mammogram, they put in a wire?
Yeah.
Or
yes. The day of surgery.
Wow. Did that hurt?
No. They numb you with a local anesthesia, lidocaine, and they kind of have almost like a needle, which, you know, when you've had a child, you kind of compare everything to that and you go, okay, not that bad. But they put a needle in while they're looking at where the area of concern is, and they insert a wire.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and they tape you up where you're walking around with a wire sticking out of your breast. Who knew?
Oh my gosh.
And then you get in the car and you drive to a new place. And then you get checked in and they numb another part of your breast and they insert radioactive, pieces, and they have to wait for that to go up into the lymph nodes. And it's just such a weird thing to be laying there. And of course they said, well, does your husband want to come watch? And I'm like, what?
No.
No, he was fascinated. He wanted to see. And
because he's an engineer, right?
Well, he's a repairman, a telephone repairman.
Right.
And you're laying there and you're looking on this screen, and all of a sudden, what they call the sentinel lymph node, the first lymph node, that if cancer could go to that, it shows up, and then a second, and then a third. And they say, okay, this was a success. And they take
Wait, how long did all that take?
Hours, because
did you bring a book? Or you can't read a book because you've got a thing in your breast, but did you bring an audio book or anything?
No, it was really weird. I'm usually the person with my iPad or my phone, and there's nothing else to be doing. And you're just kind of present in the moment, and you're going from one part of the hospital. In fact, it was so complex, all the different places I had to go. We had a navigator, someone came and picked us up and said, now go here. And then, of course, I'm not wheelchair bound, but once you're in the hospital, you're in a wheelchair. And so, it's a process of locating those lymph nodes. So that was in the middle of the day. And then they, of course, prep you for surgery. It's kind of fun to people watch. There's a lot of people in the hospital, but I had my husband with me. And so we pretty much just kind of talked. And it's just a weird feeling when you've voluntarily gone into somewhere and you're submitting to all this stuff that you've never experienced before. Then they put me in an IV, put me in a gown, and, he kind of had to help me with that. And then you're just pretty much laying in a hospital bed, waiting for all kinds of things and probes and all your vitals. And then you meet the anesthesiologist, and then your surgeon comes in and says, all your images look good. I know just what I need to do.
And she had
And
a good bedside manner, and she
oh,
told you that, you know?
amazing, amazing, amazing. I can't say enough about my doctors. And so all of a sudden, the clock struck the minute of when they would come get me, and it was all on schedule. And when they wheeled me out, Mike got to escort me, a distance, but not all the way in. And I said something that I think kind of made him mad. And my daughter-in-law just looked at me, but I said, okay, if I don't wake up, I want you to know how much I love you. And it's been a great ride. And they're both like, oh my gosh. But when you're going under, you don't know.
They didn't want to think about you not waking up. But you know what? That is your right and privilege to be able to say that before you go into surgery. I fully support you being able to say that.
Well, as it turns out, obviously it's unnecessary. But I guess for the listener, if you're facing a health crisis, it brings up a lot of emotion, a lot of possibilities. And there have been people that wrong anesthesia, heart attack, stroke. There's been things that have gone wrong. And I just didn't want the last thing out of my mouth to be something that would be good to remember. Just shook their head and rolled their eyes and said, come on, Nana. But anyway, so that's what I said. And when they rolled me in, I met a lovely young man. And the next thing I know, the anesthesiologist said, okay, I'm going to give you something to, which I'm sure the word was relax. And then I didn't remember anything. They waited for 2 hours. That's how long my surgery was. And the surgeon came and talked to him and just said she's going to be really, really sore in her armpit area because apparently lymph nodes are way up in there. And sure enough, I was. And I just wanted to get home, get in my bed and sleep. And I don't know about you, but anesthesia is rare for me to have, and I get nauseous. And so wonderful dinner, ate a little bit, and then, you know what, you're not keeping anything down.
You hadn't eaten all day because they don't let you eat before surgery.
Not all night, no drinking. So you're
right.
Pretty dehydrated from, everything. And so it was painful, but I took one of the oxycodone and an anti-nausea, and I know people were praying for me because I slept. And there's nothing better than sleep. And the next morning I got up, felt a little fuzzy, kind of foggy. And I said, I got to take a walk. And he goes, are you sure? And I said, well, I'm not going to go do lifting weights or jumping jacks, but I need to walk. And so called my new neighbor, went for a walk, and I felt so much better. And so ever since then, I have felt great. Like I almost feel guilty how good I feel. Like, really? I have to remind myself that I've got breast cancer. So we were waiting for that whole week for the results because not every part of the pathology was evident because it was such a small biopsy sample. And there was one thing that we had prayed for, that I'd be HER2 negative, that everything would be negative. And sure enough, when those results drop in and you're not even talking to your doctor, you're trying to read all this stuff and figure it out. But praise God, I came back negative on all my lymph nodes, negative on any tissue outside of it, and HER2 negative. In my mind, I'm thinking, I'm done. I'm cancer free. Everything's been removed. We're all good. And so I had to go back a week later to have my stitches checked and to talk to my surgeon. And we just go bouncing in there on cloud 9.
They didn't prepare you, or they did and you forgot?
I think it's part of the flooding. I think it's part of the if-then. If it's this, then it's this. And there's so much information at the first consultation. And I also think that surgeons and oncologists understandably want to paint a rosy picture. And they, want to give you the best possible outcome with always, but we'll have to see, or we'll have to,
And because they don't want you stressing about, this is not over. I'm still going to have to do this and this and this.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure I love that, because when she said, okay, I'll refer you for radiation, our mouths dropped open. We're like, what?
I thought it was done.
I thought I was done. And she says, well, but we don't know. It'll be 1 to 7 weeks, 1 to 7 weeks. And I'm like, well, that sounds like a difference. 5 days a week, 15 minutes each appointment. So there's no planning to go anywhere. There's no doing anything because you need to be close to that and they don't want to interrupt it. And so that was a blow. I think I really wasn't emotionally or mentally prepared for that. And then Mike asked the question, well, what's her chances of recurrence? And that's when we got the news that pretty high. But the longer I live, the chances are higher. And that was a blow too, because it's not a one and done surgery. If you've got cancer, there's always that chance of it recurring. But to find out, yeah, the percentages are higher. And so I had some really rough days. And I walked, I listened to my podcast, I called a few friends, I called my dad, just kind of looking for, I don't know, emotional support, empathy, sympathy, but trying not to be too much of a baby about it. I'm certainly not the first person that's gotten cancer, but I'm learning that it's very unique to you as an individual. Getting cancer, the type of cancer, the treatment plan, it's not a one size fits all. And it's 1 in 8 women are going to get cancer. So thinking about your 8 best friends, one of you in your life is going to get cancer. So it's pretty prevalent. So everybody has a cancer story. Everybody has a success story. And while intellectually you're going, yeah, that's so cool. They're fine. They're fine. And then you're wondering, well, what about me? So I rush home. And if you've been a longtime listener, you know that I've been planning a trip to Costa Rica.
The famous Costa Rica, the canceled Costa Rica.
Well, the canceled, the rescheduled, the canceled again, the rescheduled. So, you know, if you want to be depressed and listen to pandemic stories of Kathe and I losing our, you know, our favorite travel activity, there you go. But finally, we got it back on the calendar. The prices went up, wrote a big check. The kids are the right age. They're, 11, 10, and 7.
Yeah, they'll remember it this time.
Well, I think they were probably too young last time. So I'm choosing to think that God knew that. And he said, okay. But in my mind, got to get the cancer out. Okay, I got to do radiation. And I'm a planner. So I grab my calendar and I start counting days. And I immediately call the referral. I don't wait for them to call me.
I don't know if everybody retired or what, but now medical is just really hard to get.
It's a perfect storm. And my understanding is a lot of people post-COVID said, I'm done in every branch, whether medical assistants, nurse practitioners, surgeons, doctors, certainly.
Retired.
The baby boomers retiring. We blame it on kids that don't want to work. Well, there's not that many kids to take care of all of us. And so that combination, and we're all aging and we're all, hitting healthcare harder. So it's kind of a perfect storm. So I'm calling. Well, I said, I need to get in right away. She goes, well, I can get you next Wednesday. When was your surgery? And I said, well, last week. She goes, oh, no.
No.
You need to be healed. You need to wait 4 to 6 weeks. And I'm looking at my calendar going, oh, no. And she goes,
but I have a trip planned.
Exactly. And I said, so, I'm still believing maybe we can do this. And then she said, well, but, once you get your consultation appointment, there's some mapping. Who knew there was something called mapping where they...
And what is that anyway?
Well, from the limited reading I've done is they figure out where your cancer was and locate that and then come up with a plan to radiate that area. It used to be kind of overall, which could damage your heart or your lungs because that's where it is. And now through, miracle of technology, they can do localized.
Called mapping is really targeting.
It's figuring out where it's going to go. And then it's a couple, 2-3 weeks to figure out the configuration for the computer program. And then you start. And so right now I am in this horrible place of, I don't know if I'm going to need radiation or not. I've been referred. I don't know how much I'll need. I don't know when all this is going to happen. And I've got this trip going.
Wait a minute. So there's a possibility that you won't even need radiation, right?
Slim. There's always that possibility.
Okay.
So, on the upside, but I really, really do want to get through this. And I really do want to get on the other side of it. And so the gal was so patient and so gracious. She said, well, they're not going to want to start and stop. So until you've had your consultation, put it in your mind that you may have it after you get back.
Wait a minute. Why do you have to wait for the consultation until after you're healed? Why can't you have the consult now?
She just wasn't allowed to book it until.
Because a consultation, they're just talking to you.
Right.
I don't understand why you can't have that now.
I don't either, but she did say she was fitting me in to do 4 weeks later. And if I wasn't ready, I'd come back later. So I took the first available I could get. And she said it's 4 to 6 weeks after healing.
Okay.
So there's a window in there. I don't know, Kathe. It
seems to me the consult could happen sooner. You know?
One would think. The reality is that you're just kind of sitting here waiting on hold. And that's the emotional toll that any sort of cancer diagnosis. From the date of my, I call it D-Day diagnosis, it was 2 months till I had surgery through the holidays. So that's where I'm at. And the next time we talk, by then I'll have either had my radiation or I'll know more.
I have an idea.
Okay.
Why don't you schedule your radiation in Costa Rica? It's only 15 minutes a day. No, it's not like it's all day. Just, call some Costa Rica doctors and see if they can do it for you.
Well,
see, problem solved.
One of the things that I finally did is I started reading about the side effects because I really just didn't think I was going to need it. And one is fatigue. And, like no problem during the radiation, but it's afterwards and your body, is chemically changed. And
that's probably similar to chemotherapy. Yep. What is it they give you before chemotherapy so that you have a lot of energy? I forget. There's something that they give you.
Maybe an infusion. I don't know.
No, it's... my husband would know, but there's something that if you're having chemotherapy, they give you something like 3 days in advance. And it was funny. We're like, well, how come I can't have that all the time? Like every day,
More energy.
Yeah.
So while my emotional state says, let's get this done ASAP, my practical state says, you know what? Maybe it's okay if I go on the trip, fit in within whatever the schedule that they prescribe, the process, and then start it afterwards. And when I have no other commitments or obligations, and I do want to enjoy the trip and I want to have the energy to play with the kids and do the zip line or, go on a hike.
You'll be talking to the doctor about that in your consultation.
Exactly.
In 6 or 8 months or a year or whatever it is.
No. Weeks.
Yeah.
So with that, I'm on hold. And so the listener gets to be on hold with me. But I wanted to share a little bit, and I just can't say enough about the upfront about breast cancer, Dr. Charlotte Totman, where it's what you don't know about cancer until you do. Breast cancer until
podcast.
You do. That's the podcast. So we'll make a link in the show notes. But one of the analogies she gave that just really resonated with me was the snow globe effect. And what she talked about is if a snow globe represents your life up to this point, and that all the decisions, all the plans, all the choices, all the activities, all the things you've decided are in the snow globe and on the shelf, and they're stable, right? They were based on all the good things you've gone to this point. And getting a cancer diagnosis is analogous to taking it off the shelf, turning it upside down, and shake. And everyone knows what happens when you put the snow globe back on the shelf. And she said that everyone is trying to get back to what they refer to as normal or a new normal. And what she shared is you'll never be the same, either emotionally or psychologically, because you've just, everything's changed. And even physically, your body changes at a cellular level with whatever treatments they're giving you. And that just helped me so much to not have that expectation. But one of the things she said is don't be surprised if the little bits and pieces that fall to the ground, if things don't hit the same. For example, things that really, really bugged you before, irritants, things that annoy you, you probably aren't going to care because you're like, I want to heal. I want to get better. I don't have time to be upset about whatever that irritating thing is. But the reciprocal is true. The choices you've made, where you live, your activities, maybe they're not as important to you. Maybe other things are important to you. And apparently, cancer patients change their values, their priorities based on the fact that they've got this diagnosis and their family doesn't recognize them, or their family doesn't understand, why does she want to do that now? Why does she want to garden? Or why does she want to be in nature? Or why does she want to travel? And I just thought that is one of the best descriptions of kind of how I'm feeling, and yet not knowing, what do I want to do differently? Like, it's too raw. It's too soon. She did recommend, though, just like grief or loss, don't rush to make a change. Don't see your partner as not as supportive enough and divorce him. Don't put your house up for sale. Don't do all these drastic measures, because she said your fight or flight kicks in and you got to do something. You want to make a change.
Well, Barbara, most people have not thought about what they wanted to do as much as you have. And so I don't know that you're going to see the sweeping changes that other people see that haven't really sat down and made some decisions. So I would not be surprised if you don't change that much after all of this is said and done, because you've already been thinking about this. You've already been making decisions that a lot of people never make. I don't have cancer. But it seems to me, based on what you've just said, that when people uproot their life or they change their life, it's because they hadn't thought about it before, really. And you have. So I wouldn't be surprised if you don't change too much. I mean, if you do make some decisions that are different, then I'll certainly understand. But I don't think that that's going to affect you as much as it would somebody else who is just kind of going along happily with their life and never thought about it.
Right. No, I couldn't agree more. And I do think we made the big drastic change that we've been thinking about before the cancer diagnosis. But in hindsight, I'm really glad we did, because I'm in such a better situation with community and children and all the things that you want to have as support. I guess it's almost a metaphor for retirement planning, though, because the very same things in your mortality, the same things that you should be thinking about if you get a cancer diagnosis is what you would be thinking about for retirement. What do I want to do with the next chapter post-retirement? And so I'm seeing a lot of similarities in coping with my diagnosis as someone who's coping with, I'm retired now. What is my life like? What is my lifestyle choices? So I think that's just a very good exercise to go through. You're forced to do it in a cancer situation. You should do it in a retirement situation because the clock's running. The other word picture that has been helping me is my expectation that when I'm done with the treatment, I'm going to be fine. And I'm going to go back to hiking and biking and skiing. And one of the things that she talks about in the podcast is that there's a mismatch of reality and your expectations, and kind of a denial. I'm fine. I'm going to go back to exactly what I was the day after I'm done with my last treatment. And she gave the analogy standing on top of the ground and looking down some very steep stairs into a very, very deep basement. And she said, when you first get your diagnosis and you need your surgery, there are changes to your body and you start stepping down those stairs. If you need chemotherapy, it affects everything, right? Your immune system, your skin, I mean, just everything. And you step down some more stairs. If you need radiation, same thing. Molecular changes are happening in your body. And then if you're on any sort of estrogen suppressant, it changes your skin, your nails, your hair. I mean, it changes a lot. And she says, so I've heard of people that they plan a big party the day after they have their last treatment and then feel horrible. And so she said, give yourself a break on your expectations. And remember, it took a lot of steps to get down to the very bottom of that basement. It's going to take a lot of work and healing and effort, just to move up a few steps, but you're still in the basement. And to realize that it can take months or even years just to get back to ground zero, just to get back to the top. For me, that was so good to hear because I was imagining, okay, I'm going to plan this, I'm going to do that. And I'm realizing that I really do need to pace myself to take the time I need to let my body heal before I start trying to jump into whatever I was doing before.
Okay, so I don't know if you just heard what you just said, but I did. And you're planning to go to Costa Rica as soon as your treatment is over. Did you hear that?
Well, here's the hard decision. It's right in the midst of it, just like getting cancer right in the midst of moving. But if I have a choice, my need to have this done quickly versus the reality now that I'm learning more is going to be, it can wait a week. It can wait a week because I have a slow growing cancer that's been removed. Radiation is preventive. So why not enjoy my trip and then start in right when I get back? But the reality after the radiation, whenever it is to not stress myself for why not jump into everything. And that's something with communication to your friends and your family is you're going to appeal like, oh, good. She's done. She's done with her treatment. She looks good on the outside. She's got her color back. But on the inside, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically, I won't be the same. And so I just can't tell you how affirming it is to have a resource like that to prepare me, because those are the things that the doctors don't have time to explain. Because you don't know what you don't know, you don't ask the questions. You don't ask the questions.
You know, it would be nice if your doctor would have referred you to this podcast. You know, you found it on your own.
I don't even know if they know about it. It's in Australia.
Maybe you should tell them about it.
Well, I think I will.
And is there a breast cancer support group in your hospital or wherever you're going?
You know, when you get that diagnosis, they hand you reams and reams of papers with links and links and links. Partly, I wish I lived in Australia because they have a web tool, they have support groups. But as soon as you put in your area code, it says, oh, no, this is for Australia.
It's for Australia.
But it has caused me to go on the journey once I'm done with all of the sessions that I'm listening to see what resources there are here in the United States. There's no substitute for talking with other people who have been through the process. There's no substitute for getting support in your own community. Like most things, I've always just been able to figure it out and power through. And this is something a little bit bigger than that. So to kind of bring it to a conclusion, I wanted to share with you what happened to me in my new neighborhood. The day before my surgery, a couple weeks ago, I was looking on our little community calendar and it had spiritual encouragement, ladies group. And I was on my walk and I saw it and I went, you know what? I don't know a person there, but I'm going to go because you know what? If I don't need spiritual encouragement the day before I'm going to go in for surgery, I don't know when I would.
And if those ladies who are running the spiritual encouragement group didn't want an outsider to come in, that's not a group you want to be part of anyway.
Well, exactly. And it wouldn't be broadly advertised. But oh, Kathe, I walked into 20 delightful, loving, wonderful ladies that were so excited to see me. Oh. And it was just everything that you could want or need. And they got my number. They wanted me to text them. They were praying for me. And I couldn't wait to get back the next week after my surgery. And when I walked in, they went, "You're here." And I went, "Yeah, heck, I'm here." You know? And I just came back from it again. So this is my third time. And again, it was just right before my surgery. And today was all about looking forward to this year. And we did an exercise, which I really, really think is amazing. And that was to think about the past, to write down in the past, who was your family? What was your career? What activities did you do? I wrote down hiking, skiing, travel, biking. What was your favorite pastime, your hopes and dreams, and kind of what was your focus? And so we did that for a little bit. And then we shifted to present focus. And what a difference, right? I mean, my family's still important to me, but I don't have a career anymore. I'm retired and my activities have changed, right? I didn't golf when I was working and now I like to golf. I still like to travel, but I wrote this down on my hopes and dreams. Live for 5 years, spending time with the kids and grandkids, because everything is in 5 and 10-year increments with cancer. And then as far as the changes, it's like, okay, I would have never written this down before this, dealing with healing and recovering from cancer and being more patient on myself. And she said, so what's your word for that? And it's survival, wellness, right? Those are the things transitioning into this new life. But the really fun one was the future for family. Am I ever going to have great grandkids? Am I going to get to meet them? I mean, when you think about the future, it's like how far out there is. And then for career, I went from working to retired to, if my health's better, volunteering and giving back. My activities have changed, obviously, but I do want to exercise, eat healthy. And I just want to just get up every morning and say, this is the best day ever. And my hopes and dreams for the future are that I would find joy in every day and be open to others, more tolerant. And what I want to do is, instead of surviving, thriving. So at the end, we had to write down a word that we wanted to eliminate from 2024. And I chose the word despair. I want to eliminate any despair. And my focus of the word I want to incorporate into my life is hope. And a scripture I can share is Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. And I thought, okay, that for me is all I needed for today. And I got that from my new community, from a new group of ladies. And it was just what I needed today.
That is so powerful. That really is, Barbara. I guess God needed you to be where you were.
I think he needed me to be where I am, but I needed to be where he wanted me. And if there's a way to find that to be in alignment, it's the best. Is it hard to sell a house? Is it hard to downsize or right size? Is it hard to make a change and live in a new community? But every single day, Kathe, it's affirming for me that all that hard work of all that decision making, he had a plan and I'm right where I should be.
Yes, you're right where you should be. Wow, Barbara, what a powerful way to end today's podcast. All of us are rooting for you.
Thank you.
And we are rooting for you to be able to go on your trip before your radiation. And I am really mad that your doctor won't talk to you before you're healed, because I think that'd be really helpful. But I'm not in charge of the world. And, like you said, you're right where you need to be right now. So thanks again. And we're looking forward to hearing. Will you have talked to your doctor before our next episode?
Yes. When you and I meet again, I will know the answers to these questions. I thought long and hard about being transparent and sharing all this. I don't want our podcast to turn into the monthly updates on my health, although I will, check in and let people know. I want to keep doing what we've been doing and maybe talk to some other people. And
we already have some other guests that are going to be coming on and talking with us. So don't worry about that part, Barbara. It's not going to be the Barbara Cancer Show. Okay.
Exactly.
But this is important. And it's important for the listener because, as you said, 1 in 8 women are going to get breast cancer. And I'm sure prostate cancer is probably similar, if not a higher percentage in men. As you know, they're related. Prostate cancer, breast cancer, they're related. And they're also treated similarly by the doctors. So don't worry. It's not going to turn into that, Barbara. We've got some additional plans.
Well, exactly. But I do think that if this was going to happen to me, that there's listeners that it's happened to or will happen to. And I hope our willingness to talk about this, you and I, will help somebody in some way. And if there's anything we can do or topics we can cover that would help people. Because to be honest, in the last 2.5 years, we've just done a passing glance at health of our 6 pillars. It's been more about family and activities and just all the different things that we do. And I think I was telling you that of the 6 pillars, health affects all of them in some way, positively or negatively. And so I'm glad that we're having these talks now, because I do think that as we age, as we retire, as we make choices, it's a factor that all of us will have to consider.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again. And for the listener, we'll see you next time on the Rock Your Retirement Show. Bye.
Bye.